Welcome to this episode of Athletic Training Chat. On this episode, we have Rich Bertie, who is an athletic trainer that is still in the young professional aspect of his career, but has done a lot as it relates to service in the athletic training profession. We talk about that a lot, as that is the main focus of this episode, and how he found time and balance with it when it comes to working full-time. A lot of different experiences thus far, but all very busy, as most of us are. But if you are a young professional and really thinking about getting into service, Rich has some really good practical ways to get involved, and then explains how it's been beneficial to his career. I even took some away from this, just getting into service myself, just in a lot of the things that he has done, what unique skill sets he's been able to pull from that, including working with corporate sponsors and figuring that out. So a lot of great information there. As always, we are powered by Mueller Sports Medicine. Please go check them out for your sports medicine needs. NATA coming up. I know they're excited to be there. Unfortunately, I won't be able to make it, but I love hanging out with them. You can have any kind of conversation, throw ideas around. They've got a bunch of new things coming. Please go check them out. If nothing else, you'll meet some really great people that will always be there for you in the profession. But without further ado, please enjoy this episode. Welcome to this episode of Athletic Training Chat. Today we are on with Rich Bertie, and we are going to talk about finding time for service in the AT profession. And I will turn it over to Rich here in just a second about all of the things he's done service-wise, which kind of going through is plenty, and how, finding time for it, and, why diving into it, because that can always be a hot topic of getting involved to create change and things that you want to see. So before I keep going, I want to turn it over to you to fill in your background, and then we'll jump into talking about service and AT.
Great. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate you having me on today. Like you said, we kind of connected through a mutual friend, Matt Shade, and he's been my financial guy.
Nice.
Working with Pat's, actually. So I met him through service. But background on me, I went to Lock Haven University. I graduated there in 2013 with a Bachelor of Science and focus in athletic training. I went on to do my grad assistantship there, and then got my master's through Cal U of PA. And then after that, I was looking for my first job, was able to know somebody on the staff at St. Francis University, which is a small Division I school in the middle of Pennsylvania. So that was my first job as a professional. I stayed there for 5 years, was able to get elevated to Associate Director of Sports Med. And while I was there, I really started to ingrain service into what I do on a day-to-day basis. I was Pat's Young Professionals Chair while I was there. Did some corporate relations stuff with Pat's, and then also got involved with the NATA District 2 Young Professionals Committee. After about 5 years there, I decided to go to Wake Forest, and I worked with their men's basketball program, and worked with the NCAA CARE Concussion Research Consortium. Mm-hmm. So I was there up until COVID. We were playing the ACC tournament, and the following week, everything shut down. So I went back up to Pittsburgh, where my fiance was, and got called back to Wake Forest. And at that point, I really enjoyed spending time with her, and decided I wanted to stay in Pittsburgh. So I was back in Pennsylvania. I was able to get back with my roots, and contact those people that I knew from service. So got right back on a Pat's committee. Started with Pat's corporate relations co-chair. And then this past year, I started with the NATA Career Advancement Committee. So I'm the chair with District 2, so Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, New York. And that's pretty recent. And employment-wise, I was at Kutztown University for a little bit, and now I'm an associate athletic trainer at Drexel University, working with men's basketball. So
you've done just a couple things so far
yeah,
along the way.
yeah,
No, that's
long-winded.
no, you're all good. I believe is it. Oh, no, I'm totally blanking on it. Uh, Dr. Nikki Harris. Sorry, I'm
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Nikki Harris. Yep.
yes, who's on the career advancement committee, correct?
Yeah, she's the overall chair of the committee.
Yep. Yeah, we had her on a while ago, and it was interesting to hear her insight on just kind of that split that happened in the YP and kind of or within that 12-year range. So I'm excited to hear more about that. Uh, so just based on your background and what we had kind of talked about, you're busy. You got a lot of things going on. Division I basketball, demanding long seasons. Obviously, COVID. Still doing that now. Um, with all of that happening, what drew you to the service aspect of athletic training?
Yeah, I love that question. Everybody's answer is a little bit different.
Sure.
So my answer is when I was an undergraduate, um, my professor, my mentor, Dr. Yvette Ingram, she was the current Pat's president at that time. So she was one of her professors. She was my preceptor for football. And it was like, oh, you're gonna volunteer for this type of thing. And so I ended up going to hike to Harrisburg in 2012, where we go to Pennsylvania state capital, and at that point we were really working hard to secure licensure
Mm-hmm.
in the state. So that was like one of the biggest things that we did was go there and meet our senators, meet our representatives, and yeah, just basically thank them and for basically making us licensed in the state of Pennsylvania to practice as medical practitioners. So I think that was when I really got started, and then after that, it just kind of carried on. I went to conferences, and you just start meeting people, and the snowball just keeps rolling.
Fair enough. The voluntold way of getting engaged in it, like
Exactly.
it can have its merits at times, right?
Yes.
How do you balance that and like work it into your career? I know for me, I've just completed year one of being a regional rep in my state, and also working on a committee there that in hindsight, I didn't dedicate nearly as much time as I needed to, and still need to figure out how to do that jumping in here into year two. But I'd be curious how you've done it, because obviously busy, very, very busy in season and off season. Everybody understands trying to throttle down a little bit, but if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to time management and where your available time is. Um, I'm a planner, so if I can schedule as best I can, whether that's around practice, if there's spots in practice where I know we're not going live, I know there's not going to be a lot of stuff going on. Try to schedule it during there. Probably not the best suggestion, but I'm an early guy too, so wake up usually around 5:36. Try to get into work a little bit early, and at that point, that's when I check all my professional service stuff before
Okay.
I even get my day started for work. Um, we practice at 9:30. Guys lift at 8. So typically, I don't get anybody earlier than 8 unless it's like a long-term rehab. So I get there around
Sure.
7, and I usually take that first hour. And if I have to send emails, whether it's working on a project, that's kind of when I do it. And then just trying to find time around my schedule outside of that. If it's a conference call or anything like that, it would just be time management.
Is there anything you found where you've been able to like tie in your daily work, your job with any of the projects that you've been doing? Have you found a way to cross any of that over?
It's actually a good question. I actually haven't had much crossover between
Okay.
professional service and like my employer. Um, Obviously, they've been great. Every employer I've had has allowed me to have time to do other things. So I think a big thing is finding somebody that enables you to do professional service. A lot of the time, it's a lot of time devoted to going to conferences, doing meetings and things like that. So just an employer that allows you to do those things, I think, is really, really important if you want to, move forward with professional service.
I agree with that. Um, you having done a lot both at the state and the district level, I can only speak to the state from my own experience. But what is the might be the biggest misconception you've seen in kind of service in AT? You've met a lot of different people. I'm sure some people that have taken to it more than others. But what have you seen?
I think a lot of people, a lot of young professionals think it's such a tough circle to crack. Um, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I think the more you try to involve yourself, the more you try to volunteer, I think the better it is. People understand who you are and what your name is, whether that's reaching out via email, on social media, on volunteer pages, whatever that may be. I think just putting yourself out there, trying to say that you're energetic, you really want to be involved, and then even starting at your state level, that's probably the easiest thing because you're in the state. You may know some people on the committees, and then just working up from that. There's so many committees in every state, every district, every NAT national program. There's so many committees that you can join. I think just kind of getting at least like 5 committees that you're really interested in, and then just starting there. And if that doesn't work, you can kind of expand that search a little bit.
I think it's been fascinating to me how hard it is to fill committees when you're actually in it and there and trying to find people that are interested. So if you are interested, I think what you said is so important, like the persistence. Like I know when I originally reached out to be a part of the leadership committee, which I didn't exactly know what it was. What I thought it was and what it was two different things, but didn't hear back right away. Okay, no big deal. Like I'll shoot another email, just to follow up. And apparently an email had gotten lost in translation or something like that. And then ultimately they're like, oh, you want to take this over? Well, do whatever you want with it. Like, here's what it was and what do you want it to be? And those opportunities are there. You just got to be, I think, persistent because for a lot of people, I do my best to check all of my stuff at least once a week just to make sure I'm not getting too far behind. I've got it up in the 37 tabs that I have on my browser to make sure that I still see it. But that's not always the case with people that are on those. And so having a little persistence can be useful, especially with those specifically tied email addresses.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think professional service also takes a good amount of time to get responses because it's not a full-time job.
Right.
They're doing this as volunteers most of the time, so they may be checking it once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks. So I think it is, if you don't get a response right away, like don't be hesitant to reach back out and just say, hey, is there any more openings in your state committees? Do you have any like potential other opportunities, any task force committees, any other projects that you can work on? There's so many things going on at every single level, or just even volunteering for NATA. That's an easy way to just meet people. So,
what is your ultimate goal with all the service? I mean, you've done like corporate relations co-chair, sounds fascinating. Would be curious to just hear a little bit more about that. But your work on, we mentioned the career advancement committee and everything with the young professionals. Like, what is your ultimate goal in serving in all these roles?
my ultimate goal is to make the profession better. I don't think it's like an individual goal, like I want to
Sure.
reach this plateau. It's just on a day-to-day basis, just try to progress the profession, leave it better than I found it, leave it better than when I got here. Whether that's through corporate relations, where trying to raise money for our state organizations to have less overhead. That's pretty much what that committee is for. Just getting out there, talking to reps, talking to other companies, and trying to see if they want to sponsor PATs. So that's what that committee's typically about. And then career advancement committee, same type of thing, just trying to advance the profession. Really trying to hit home on salaries and work-life balance. So I think those are 2 keys. But yeah, overall, just trying to better the profession.
Talking about misconceptions, you just mentioned the career advancement and salaries. I know that comes up depending on who is listening and how much you're in the social media world. But that it obviously comes up a lot, as it should. But there's some, always the argument of, what is the NATA doing for ATs to help advance salary? Is there anything you can maybe shed some light on? Obviously, it is so multifactorial that it's not like the NATA can just snap their fingers and all of a sudden everybody gets a $10,000 raise, which would be awesome. But just kind of what misconceptions are around that and what service can do to help the profession and those in it to get to where they want to go.
Yeah, so I think, a lot of the misconception is that the NATA is like the governing body of athletic trainers. And that, like you said, snap of the fingers, you can make $10,000 extra. Whereas I see the NATA as an information hub, a resource hub. So they're just collecting the salary information to allow every athletic trainer to see where they stand individually. Because I feel like that's where a lot of the conflict comes, is because you have some people that are really good at salary negotiation, and then there's also some that aren't very experienced at it, especially with young professionals, and saying, you know your worth, you know your value. How do you prove that? So I think there's so many different things in terms of salary, but the NATA provides resources on how to help, and then it's your job to be well-rounded in those type of conversations with your stakeholders, whether that's an AD or a principal, or in someone in your position. I'm sure you may be under a hospital administration, so just understanding the language that each individual has, because at the end of the day, most of the time they're worried about the line item in the budget, and if there's no money to give to you, they can't. Their hands are tied. So creating ways on how to produce revenue is also another good idea, if you can find any way. If you're, maybe you can look at raising money to, help offset your overall budget.
Sure.
Just other things like that. Yeah, you can really go off in a tangent on this one.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Is going the service route, do you think, right for everyone? Is it something that ATs should, always pursue? Should it be a requirement? Any kind of general thoughts from your experiences?
I will say, I think it's great to experience it, but I think if you're not passionate about it, you kind of get caught up in the time commitment type thing. You get caught up in not being paid for the experiences. Then I don't think that's probably the route you should go. If you're getting caught up in those things, I would say probably not for everybody. But if you're someone that's really passionate about helping move the profession forward, doing anything you can to help somebody else out, I think it's a great thing to do. It's so rewarding to be at conferences and seeing people that I've met and worked with. And we don't see each other for years, probably at this point. Like COVID, took 2 years away from everybody. So I'm chomping at the bit to get back in person, just to connect with everybody again, because it's so enjoyable. And I feel like every time you go to a conference, you get that fire renewed back in you. You just like really want to help out. So that's the stuff that I really enjoy about it, is just connecting with people and really helping the next person out.
I think that's the in-person. I'm going to end up missing NATA this year, which is so unfortunate, because there's so many people that we've gotten to talk to over the last year and a half, 2 years, that, man, it'd just be great to connect in person, but not in the cards this year, unfortunately. What have you seen as your biggest success or accomplishment? I know it, like you said, what you do in service is about pushing the profession forward, so we can tie it to that, not your own personal success, or if you got an example of both, that's going to keep you coming back to doing more service. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the best thing that I've ever gotten is probably all of the relationships I've been able to develop. Talking to past presidents, or talking to the executive board, or talking to Hall of Fame members, whether that's at NATA, District 2, EATA, PATS, just developing those relationships and, being a mentor to others, I think is also important. Being a preceptor, I'm a preceptor for Temple right now. So just, trying to get back to the profession in terms of service, I think is probably one of the biggest rewards. Aside from that, this year I did receive an award from PATS.
Nice.
I got the PATS Service Award, which goes to an individual that puts in, I think it was 5 years of professional service. So yeah, I was able to accept that this year, and be getting that at PATS in June. That was like probably my only service-related award.
Well, congratulations on that one.
Thank you.
Like I said, just made it through year one. We'll see how year two goes here, and where that training goes. What else around service haven't we covered that you think is important? Kind of covered a whole gamut of things so far.
Yeah, I think maybe not from a service perspective, but I think from a young professional perspective, like find a mentor outside of the person that you already look to, whether that's through social media, like I said before, walking up to a person with a Hall of Fame jacket on and saying, "Hey, my name is so and so. I'm really interested in getting in the profession. Do you have any advice?" And just finding a mentor that you don't know, I think is important, because a lot of the time athletic trainers are willing to help others, but they don't know how to help others if they don't know the person.
Yeah, how important it is to get context then about what has been done in the past or been tried, so you're not necessarily having to reinvent the wheel if it's already been somewhat assembled. Maybe you can have a new idea that helps it make it just a little bit better to truly get something accomplished that people want to get accomplished.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything else that you'd like to cover before we jump into the athletic training chat questions?
I'm trying to think here. I don't think so.
You're very succinct in your answers, and it's good. Gets the point across very well. So I'm running out of things to ask you that we had already put out there, but that's all good. So maybe we'll judge something up a little bit more out of these as we get going. First one is where do you see athletic training going in the next 5 to 10 years? And if you could kind of set the example of what you're seeing.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting time in athletic training, just based on the degree requirements. Since we went from a bachelor's to a master's program, I'll be interested to see how that goes in terms of the overall amount of athletic trainers we have. I know there's a pretty big supply and demand in college right now. I don't think colleges have really bumped up their salaries to meet the needs of incoming young professionals, and I think they're starting to realize that. So, I mean, we're starting to see more transition into other practices, whether that's going to PT school, whether that's going to PA school, even, nursing school, things like that, other healthcare professions, because we're not putting it up the salary for the amount of school that we're recommending. So I'll be interested to see how it is in 5 to 10 years on, are we able to adjust from going to a master's program, or will we have a decline in athletic trainers produced? And if so, what is it from? Are they going to other practices? Are they going to different career fields? It'll just be an interesting situation. And then just to see how third-party billing progresses. Are insurance companies including us, or are they not? So I think it's just really a wide open box, and even setting to setting, just seeing where we progress to.
From your career advancement committee, just kind of curious if that's something that you guys are even able to follow, because it's so big and broad and there's so much detail out there. But has there been a general sense that salaries in that, just speaking in the university or collegiate setting, that's what you've been most, are starting to trend in that way? I know there's been some concern about compression with even there's teachers and things like that within that realm and professors, but is there anything that you guys are even able to track if you are?
Not that I'm aware of,
Okay.
but I will say, like, you could see postings on
Right.
NATA, Indeed, and some of the salaries are just, it's an old salary, it's an old job description, and until the employer changes things, I think the AT is probably not going to go to that position, and especially if you're going to a college, a smaller college that doesn't have an appropriate amount of staff. I mean, you're going to get burnout. You're gonna not enjoy what you're doing because the salary that you get, you're working 60 hours for. And when you start comparing it to working at Amazon, to working at anywhere else like Aldi, even grocery store, Walmart, it's tough to compare because of the background that we have as healthcare professionals. So I understand the young professional and saying I'm kind of done with this because of this. Like, I'm not being rewarded for what I think I deserve. I think that's a huge problem. Until the employer corrects that, I think we're going to see a trend similar to what we're seeing now.
I agree. It is going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out. Yes, it will. What advice would you give yourself if you could go back as a young athletic trainer, and if you could set the time frame of when that was?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. What would I tell myself? I would just say be more, I would say, open to, or more, I don't know the right word for this, outgoing, I would say. When I was I was a graduate of Lock Haven, I was still a little bit shy.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really the outgoing type to go up to somebody like I'm recommending to do now, and say like, "Hey, my name's Rich. I'm really into professional service. Is there any committees to be on?" I kind of worked behind the scenes on some other projects, and Dr. Ingram really helped, put me into situations where I had to talk to people and do things. So if I didn't have that, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at today. So I would definitely say be more outgoing and be, sociable, and be open to talking to people, even if you don't know them.
Right. I'm still getting myself over that. It's a lot easier to reach out on social media and then meet somebody or via email and then meet them on here than just walking up to them at a conference. So
yeah, exactly.
Slowly
interrupt them
out
during a conversation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Or you go do that to somebody like, hey, have you met my friend? And then walk away. Like I'll got to do that to somebody at some point. Yes. What has been the most influential resource that you have found in your career?
Yeah, I think the most influential resource has been the connections, the relationships that I've been able to make. When I first got my job at St. Francis, I was calling Dr. Ingram like probably every week just to say like, what's going on here? Like, what am I not getting? How do we make this better? So I thought to myself, what if I didn't have my mentor? So then we put together a mentorship program for Pats. That was like my main goal, and just so everyone had a different mentor outside of their, their curriculum, their program. So that was one of the biggest things that I'd have done. But just the amount of relationships that I've been able to get, and then just knowing that you're a phone call away from somebody that can provide pretty good advice, or an answer to a question that you may have, I think is so influential in terms of this profession.
Yeah, being one that has not taken that advice in my own career, and now I'm finally starting to do that and really reach out and try and connect. I can't agree more that it's important to start that early and extend yourself in that, because it'll be worth it in the long run.
Yeah, and you never know what job opens up.
Right.
And I know it's a lot of now we're trying to really make sure that we have a great process in job hiring, but that personal connection, it goes a long way, especially if you have good experiences and you know the person.
Absolutely. As an AT in your role, how do you take care of yourself?
Yeah, I love to work out, love to golf, love spending time with my fiance and our dog Bailey.
Nice.
She's got to be turning a year pretty soon, so uh, she welcomes me every day. There's never a mad day. I don't have a bad day at all when I get home because
Sure.
the dog greets me every day at the door. So she's a little golden retriever.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of how I do it, and honestly, professional service that kind of helps me out. It gives you time to blow steam off if you need to, as well from your current job, and it's always nice.
Absolutely. If you could change or eliminate one thing, could be a modality, a common practice, a mindset, or whatever you're choosing in the field of athletic training, what would it be?
I think the first thing I would do is eliminate passive modalities.
Ooh, all right.
So like ice, heat,
Yep.
stim, ultrasound, all this stuff where the individual is not really moving, not really working. That's one thing, 100%. Even taping, like that's a passive modality, right? Um, does it help mentally? Maybe, but outside of that, like what are we really doing? I'm really trying to restrict the ankle when I really want more range of motion in that ankle. So that's just two of the things, or I guess however many that was. Recovery boots, that's something I would. Let's get the basics done first. Let's eat right. Let's drink properly and sleep. I think those are like the three basic things that anybody can do to help recover and make your body feel good. But I think the new generation of athletic trainers coming out understand that, and I think they're really, really moving past the whole I'm going to ultrasound you for 5 to 10 minutes, and
Sure.
then hopefully in a month we'll get benefits. More so based on the amount of time that you've taken off, not
Mm-hmm.
so much the ultrasound. So yeah, I think just movement, and more movement. Trying to move better is hopefully where athletic training moves to.
I like it. Heard that one come up a couple times, so there's definitely a trend coming.
Yeah,
What does being an athletic trainer mean to you?
good question. Um,
That's our deep hitting one.
yeah, I think being an athletic trainer is just so you do everything. In my position, first thing I do is I come in, I check the locker room and see how our snacks are, right? That's nothing we learned in college, but that's something that's important to my day to day. My day to day abilities, because if our guys aren't fueled for practice, I don't want to deal with those problems, to be honest. If, somebody's feeling weak and they didn't eat breakfast, like I don't want that to happen because of the nutrition wasn't stocked. Or they didn't have proper fluids, things like that. So we do so many things. If it's sport psychology and just talking to an athlete and trying to refer them somewhere else, dealing with injuries, obviously, preventative stuff. So we do daily mobility circuits after practice. Just trying to really enhance hip, knee, and ankle stability, mobility. Um, yeah, I think the athletic trainer does it all. I just, we had our banquet this past week for men's basketball, and my coach called me the MVT. Unfortunately, he said most valuable trainer instead of athletic trainer, but it's an encompassing job. You're part of the staff, you're part of the overall athletic administration. So um, I think it's everything to a student athlete, to a patient. It's rewarding. I don't know. It's a great question. It's so hard to answer.
Oh, yeah, I think that was a great answer to it. Encompassed all of it, and I couldn't agree more. So appreciate you for that. Kind of just to wrap up, then, if people wanted to get in touch with you to talk about service or just anything else, what would be the best place for them to get a hold of you? And we'll link all this up on the episode page as well.
Okay. Yeah. So Twitter, I think it's rbertie34, and other than that, just reach me by email. Um, my Drexel email is rsb323 at drexel.edu. That can be found on our athletics webpage as well. And then I'm also on the PAPS website, and I believe the NATA District 2 website.
Awesome. I appreciate you taking the time and fitting this in around your schedule, and look forward to staying in touch in the future.
Thanks for having me, Joel.
Thanks again for listening to this episode with Rich Bertie. Just one more quick shout out to Mueller Sports Medicine for supporting this podcast and the profession. We are still going strong with the Throw a Lifeline program. We are getting our second one out there and look forward to putting out many more. So please go to clinicallypress.com/throw a lifeline if you're interested, want to help out, and or nominate someone or apply for one of these packages. So thanks again, and we'll catch you next episode.